Hello, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Megan and I'm glad you're watching this. Alright, so today I'm going to be sharing with you guys how I was diagnosed with POTS, which it stands for postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. It's a form of dysautonomia, and I want to share this one because I wanted to explain for my journey why it's been helpful to have this diagnosis. I've never believed it to be my root problem. My doctors have, as well as myself, have always believed that it is a comorbidity or secondary to my cervical instability. But with that, having the diagnosis has been helpful along the way. And so that's why I wanted to share this for anyone in a similar spot. All right, so first and foremost, the test I was used to be diagnosed is the 10-minute, I think it's called the 10-minute Nasoline Test, or just, it's also just called the Nasoline Test. And in the description of this video, I'm going to link a PDF for the diagnostic of it if you want to show it to your physician, or if you just want to take a look. I'm also going to put another article that has been helpful for me in the details of the different diagnostics of POTS. But that is the test that I used. Okay, so I've gone through the test twice. The first time it was by a cardiologist. My primary doctor, who is very familiar with POTS, referred me out to a cardiologist to do the Nasoline test. Sorry, not the tilt table. I didn't do the tilt table, but that is the test. I meant the Nasoline test. And the first doctor that I went to who did this test was not very well informed on POTS or on the Nasoline test at all. And so he did put me through the test, and I came back positive as having postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. But because he was unfamiliar with POTS and just the disorder in general, there was a lot of just confusion amongst my doctors, which was difficult. And so my diagnosis was in my in my portal, and then it was taken out because there was so much confusion going on. And so I had to do the test again from a different physician. And so I wanted to share that because my suggestion would be, if you're going to try and be diagnosed via the Nasoline test, I would recommend having someone do it who is familiar with POTS so that they can do it properly and help you along the way and just clear any confusion would be my first tip. All right, so then the next time I was diagnosed, because I had to do it again to just kind of confirm the diagnosis because there was confusion amongst my whole team of doctors. And I'm going to share what the process was like so that I can give tips that would have been helpful along the way. All right, so the Nasoline test, like I said, it's going to be in the description, but just very briefly, you lay down for 10 to 15 minutes flat, and then you're supposed to stand against a wall for 15 minutes, and your heart rate and blood pressure, I believe, are monitored. And if there is a certain amount of differentiation in those things and there's abnormalities, then you are diagnosed with POTS. The second time around, my postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome was so severe that I couldn't finish the test. About 5 minutes from literally just laying down to standing up, 5 minutes afterwards, I passed out, which is consistent with this syndrome. And so my first tip would be, if you're doing the test, be aware that you can pass out if you haven't already passed out, and have somebody ready. Luckily, the person who did the test for me, caught me, and laid me down on a medical table, which is good because then I didn't hit my head or injure myself in the process. So just for safety's sake, I would say be aware that that is a possibility. Okay, and then one reason why it's helpful to have this diagnosis and have it in your medical portal or chart or whatever is because it clears confusion with doctors. My journey has been that I've had to see so many different doctors, and so when I go to a new doctor and it's already in my portal that I have POTS, it just clears confusion. I have less explaining to do and less catching up because my medical history is not brief, and oftentimes in appointments that time is valuable. And so if I'm spending half of the time just getting them up to date, that's a lot of precious time wasted. So for that reason, it's helpful to have the diagnosis. Another reason is for interventions if your POTS is debilitating. I know some people will take beta blockers. I never did because I was solely just trying to deal with my craniocervical instability and get that taken care of as soon as possible. But those are options. So going off of that, another reason why having the diagnosis can be helpful is because you can just have interventions, alleviate symptoms along the way. I stuck to compression garments like compression socks, an abdominal binder, eating a lot of salt and adding salt to my water. I tried liquid IVs for a while. Those made me nauseous, but it will potentially provide some relief. The one thing that I also realized along the way is that it's helpful for doctors to know so that they also don't harm you or accidentally trigger something in the process. I randomly had a checkup appointment for something entirely unrelated to my cervical instability, and I had to get an exam, and the doctor didn't know I had POTS, and so I was laying down on the table for an exam, and then she sat me up without asking, and she just grabbed my arms and sat me up really fast, and that was really not good for me. It flared me extremely because of the drastic position change. I was just in the dysautonomia flare for a long time, and it created a lot of unnecessary discomfort for me. But my doctor didn't know that because she was not familiar with POTS, and she didn't know that sitting me up that fast would create problems. And so I would say for your safety, it might be helpful to avoid unnecessary events like that, to have a POTS diagnosis in your portal. Also, that same doctor, I told her I had POTS afterwards, and she was unfamiliar with the condition or the syndrome. It's technically a syndrome, not a condition. And she put, this is a funny story, she put POTS in my chart or in my portal, and she spelled it POTTS because she didn't know what POTS was, and that stands for tuberculosis of the spine, which I do not have. And so luckily I found that and got them to take it out, but that could potentially cause some problems to have such a severe condition in your portal unnecessarily. So I would say just being as clear as possible across the board is helpful, and it's been helpful for me. Those are some tips that have been beneficial, and I hope that they may be for you as well. If you have any questions, you can email me or comment below, and I will get back to you.